Good morning. Let's dive right into it. Pam, you're joining us here after GM has recently made some very big announcements about electric vehicles. Can you give us a quick summary?
Absolutely. So General Motors has recently been talking about, our view of the future, and we see a future that has zero crashes, zero emissions, and zero congestion. And so in support of that, we've been doing things for a while, but continue to set the bar high in the future. We've announced that we will have 20 additional electric entries in our portfolio by 2023, and we'll have additional new vehicle architectures in the future to support entries even beyond that. In addition, we've talked about to support some of the, besides zero emissions, the zero crashes, and getting at congestion. We've announced we will be in the rideshare market with autonomous vehicles by 2019. In fact, you can see our second generation autonomous vehicle in the lobby here. We've actually already introduced our third generation car coming off our assembly line in Orion, Michigan. Those cars are on the road today in San Francisco, operating every day, encountering many difficult challenges for those of you that have driven in the roads of San Francisco. So those are just some of the, I'll call it, bigger initiatives that we have toward this future of zero crashes, zero emissions, and zero congestion.
Thank you. Phil, Pam talked a lot about grand plans for electric vehicles and the growth. What goes through your mind when you think about the infrastructure landscape that's required to support that future?
Well, I think of great opportunities, but I think of great challenges too. So the electric grid since 2009 or 10 has been undergoing a major transformation. Smart grid, automated metering infrastructure. We're building more and more intelligence and digital information into the grid. So that's good. The difficult challenge about this area is you're combining two sectors. One is the transportation sector, largely unregulated, with a heavily regulated utility sector by state commissions. I served as a state commissioner for 12 years in the state of Washington. So that's the challenge. I mean, the good news is that we have Electrify America money going out, about $2 billion, building a national charging station, but we are woefully, I think we're woefully unprepared both in the city. So for those of you here that hear the story or the narrative that the inner cities are ready for EVs, they're not. So we need a combination of level 1, level 2 at home, level 2 in public, and we need DC fast charging and multi-unit dwellings, and we need workplace charging. So we believe that the utility is an essential player to get this industry beyond the valley of death, transform the market. The market is going to accommodate many, many players. So we think the utility has a role, and it has to be interoperable with open standards.
Perfect. So clearly, infrastructure is right there in the nucleus of what's really important for EVs and success and adoption of electric vehicles. But it seems like there are a couple other things, and maybe I'll just mention those. Policies that support electric vehicles, and then maybe even EV awareness, which I think is just maybe right there at the top of this list. If I just touch for a second about policies, we've got brand new technology that's fabulous, wins all kinds of awards, but they're sort of uncertain consumers. They're a little tenuous when hey, we don't really like going to the gas station, but we know it, so we prefer it right now. And so I think the issue here is how do you use policies to your advantage? I mean, sometimes vehicle incentives still play a role. So do HOV lanes, making allowances. These incentives are really important just to sort of tip the consumer over the edge to make them more aware of the technology that's out there, because clearly the market's been moving from early adopters into the mainstream, and of course that's the goal, right? It's to get these vehicles accessible to all, by all. And so to do that, you're moving into a very different kind of market segment that needs more encouragement, more awareness. And if I look at EV awareness, a lot of studies out there just over and over again express how little general awareness there is of EVs. 60% of Americans don't even know anything about electric vehicles, and of those that do know about them, 85% of those remaining say we won't consider an EV because there just doesn't seem to be any EV infrastructure. So back to your point about EV infrastructure. So we are excited about some of the stuff that's coming into the market as far as Electrify America goes, and even the utility engagement. We've got to see more investment by the utilities. But I think that sort of EV awareness rises to the top of the list if I had to sort of put my 2 cents in there too. Pam, so I think that you talked about commitments to EVs, but I think we're talking about more than just personal vehicles, right? There's more going on that is beyond just the personal retail market.
Yeah, in general, I would say the transportation industry is probably, I'm biased, but feel one of the most exciting places to be right now, right? The transformation of the transportation industry is really impressive and a great challenge. With that, we General Motors are here to move humanity forward. And so the notion is we want to provide mobility to people, to all people, because that's what lets them do what they need personally, professionally, in their daily lives. And so while we continue to make, I'll call it conventional vehicles better and better, we have, we do see this future that has electrification. And then we see a future that has people that may not want to, or may not want to drive vehicles, may not want to own vehicles. And so through car share, through ride share, through self-driving, whether it's a technology we have on the road today called Super Cruise, which would be in your own personally owned vehicle, or an autonomous vehicle like the one that you see in the lobby. Those are all things that we're doing to really be able to provide mobility to everyone. So to make sure that the people that can drive today can continue to get where they want to be, so that the people that will be coming into, into their adulthood and may have different preferences, have choices, but also so that the people today that don't have good choices to get around, that are underserved for a multitude of reasons, to bring choices to those people. And today we have a number of things going on that I think are great precursors to scale in all those arenas. We have the largest electrified car fleet in the country out operating, autonomous vehicles in San Francisco, Phoenix, New York City, other places soon. So, keep your eyes open. There's some pretty exciting things on the road now and coming more in the future.
Phil, back to you. What do you think utilities, policymakers, and utility regulators really need to understand to move the needle forward and really create this infrastructure landscape that we very much need today to accelerate the EV market?
I'd say three things on this awareness point for all of you who are EV owners or want to be an EV owner concerned about climate change. The only way that we're going to get to our 80% reduction goal by 2050 is electrifying transportation. So if you're concerned about that, weigh in with your state commission, your governor, your legislator. They need to hear from you. That's point number one. Awareness, let's get this going. Point number two is we need more collaboration, less litigation. There's a lot of litigation going on at state commissions by certain companies and certain folks who want to preserve certain things. That has to change. And as I said, finally, I think the state commissioners need to be educated on this. That's part of my role with this new alliance. As I said, state commissions are primarily concerned about regulating utilities, but there's this potentially huge new load. Let's take Electrify America said yesterday at a conference that they're talking to utilities. They're going to have a 2.5 megawatt load of public-facing charging that they're going to be building out. That's a big load. Utilities loads have not been growing for 10 years with energy efficiency. So you have to align the interests, more collaboration, less adversarial proceedings.
Good. So clearly opportunity.
Yeah.
A lot of opportunity if we get it right, and we can get it right if all the right players are participating,
Correct.
Including utilities. So Pam, can you think of other help that we're looking for? I mean, we heard, infrastructure, EV awareness, really two critical barriers to the EV market today, especially if we think in terms of the national dialogue and what's the vision, where do the states, what's the role of the states in all of this? Can you think of other help that we need from policymakers, other stakeholders, utilities? What comes to mind? What other assistance is needed out there to move to automated, connected, electric, and shared mobility?
So, coming from the engineering side of this business, if you talk about a future of zero emissions, we know that owners of electrified vehicles are the most satisfied in the industry. And so I think this is where the engineering community and everyone else can come together in that around awareness. And I think all of us that believe in a future that sees zero crashes, zero emissions zero congestion, to raise awareness on technologies. Let's start with electrification. To raise awareness to those constituents that you have. Maybe it's your consumers, your customers, your organization. I think we all have a role in that to try to move forward. And then we can just build upon that as we get to more and more technology deployed, again, to provide mobility really for everyone.
Well, thank you. That's very uplifting. I think on that note, I think we'll end the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.